You want me to go first?
You can watch the ocean all day and still miss the real war happening under it. Somewhere along a coastline, a steel door slides shut, a tunnel swallows a hull, and a submarine disappears into rock, ice, or pure remoteness. These shelters are not just parking spots. They are survival machines built so a fleet can hide, reload, repair, and leave again without giving you a clean target. Stay with us because we're counting down concealed naval hideouts, and the last one is not underwater at all.
Full blow and a sounding of 1490 fathoms beneath.
By the end, you'll know what hiding really means, but before we get started, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. Number 15, Ulin Naval Base, Hainan Island. You are in the South China Sea, and the shipping lanes do half the masking. On Hainan Island, China's Ulin Naval Base is built into rugged terrain, with tunnels cut into rock so submarines can disappear without sitting on a pier. Estimates have put the underground build above $18 billion. The base is linked to Type 093 nuclear attack submarines, and reporting suggests it can shelter up to 6 at once. Commercial satellite imagery has shown submarines near tunnel mouths, which is the whole idea. Enter, seal, vanish, and force anyone watching to guess. Number 14, Severomorsk, Kola Bay. You head into the Barents Sea and everything gets colder and quieter. Severomorsk sits on Kola Bay inside the Arctic Circle, a closed city once called Vyinga, tied to Russia's Northern Fleet. It grows from timber logistics in the 1920s into fleet basing after 1933. World War II interrupts the build, but a nearby airfield supports Arctic convoy protection, including British use. After the war, the coastline hardens into a fortified naval zone again. The prize is maintenance capacity because nuclear submarines do not just need secrecy, they need heavy industrial support. Number 13, HM Naval Base Clyde, Scotland. On the Gairloch west of Glasgow, calm water hides an extremely sharp mission. HM Naval Base Clyde was chosen in the Cold War for deep sheltered anchorage and fast access to the North Atlantic. Fastlane hosts Vanguard-class ballistic missile submarines and Astute-class attack submarines. Nearby, RNAD Coulport supports the weapons side, splitting the most sensitive work across sites. Security is relentless. Barriers, armed guards, and monitoring that follows even the people who belong there. The hiding is partly geography, but mostly procedure. Number 12, U.S. Navy Acoustic Research Detachment, Bayview, Idaho. This one catches you off guard because it is inland. In Bayview, Idaho, the U.S. Navy's Acoustic Research Detachment uses Lake Pender Isle as a quiet test range, away from coastal eyes. The lake reaches about 1,150 feet deep, and its clear water supports precise acoustic measurement. The focus is sonar, the invisible contest that decides who finds who first. On the lakebed sits the Intermediate Scale Measuring System, a roughly 1,000-foot circle of hydrophones used to measure submarine performance with tight control. You cannot hide without understanding sound. Number 11, Olavsvern, Norway. Near Tromsø, you face a mountain turned into a dock. Olavsvern was carved under roughly 900 feet of rock and permafrost, completed in 1987 as a hardened Arctic shelter for Norway and NATO partners. You enter through a tunnel about 3,000 feet long into an underground network designed to defeat surveillance and brutal weather. The facility spans about 270,000 square feet and includes a 1,100-ton dry dock built to take up to 6 submarines. Decommissioned in 2009, later ownership links triggered concern because a cave like this is not just infrastructure, it is leverage. Number 10, sea-based X-band radar, SBX-1. SBX-1 is not a submarine pen, but it is still a sheltered naval asset built for high-value hardware. It is a self-propelled floating X-band radar station for U.S. missile defense, meant to track ballistic targets and help separate warheads from decoys. The system rides on a converted CS-50 twin-hull semi-submersible platform with a protective dome over the sensor. Inside is an antenna weighing about 18,000 pounds with roughly 45,000 transmit-receive modules, and tracking reach described at over 1,200 miles. The concealment is mobility. It can reposition to where the geometry matters. Number 9, Subic Bay, Philippines. Subic Bay shelters ships by being a naturally perfect basin. On Luzon's west coast, about 62 miles northwest of Manila, the water is deep and protected, ideal for big hulls without rough seas forcing predictable behavior. After U.S. control began in 1899, the bay grows into a major Pacific base built for repair and logistics. In 1991, after Mount Pinatubo erupts, the U.S. base closes, but the location becomes the Subic Bay Freeport Zone. Commercial traffic helps blur what is routine and what is sensitive, which is a different kind of cover. Number 8, Naval Magazine, Indian Island, Washington. You reach an island that works like the fleet's locked supply room. Naval Magazine, Indian Island covers about 4.3 square miles and holds more than 100 concrete magazines for ordnance storage. A pier around 1,600 feet long can handle deep draft visitors up to 55 feet at low tide, so major combatants can reload without advertising the details. Submarines may spend days here taking on torpedoes, sometimes up to 6, because loading is slow, careful work. A giant crane, known as Big Blue, is sighted at roughly an 89,000-pound lift, and that number tells you the scale of what moves here. Number 7, Zapadnaya Litsa, Kola Peninsula. Zapadnaya Litsa sits inside the Litsa Fjord near Russia's border with Norway, about 120 kilometers from Murmansk. The landscape is the first barrier. Swamps, rivers, hard rock, and roughly 43 days of polar night every year. The second barrier is policy. Because the area is tied closely to Northern Fleet nuclear submarine operations. Development begins in 1939, fades when the map shifts, then returns in the nuclear era. It becomes associated with early Soviet nuclear submarine activity in the late 1950s, and the cold remoteness keeps doing its job long after the concrete is poured. Number 6, Submarine Base Bangor, Washington. Bangor is a strategic shelter built around routine and armed control. On the Kitsap Peninsula along Hood Canal, it is the primary home for Pacific Fleet Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines tied to the Trident system. The site starts in 1942 as an ammunition shipping point. The Navy later buys about 7,600 acres for roughly $18 million, selects Bangor for the Trident fleet in 1973, and activates the base in 1977. Inside the fence, the Strategic Weapons Facility Pacific supports the missiles and related systems, and Marines have provided dedicated security since 1978. Here, secrecy is a schedule. Number 5, Cape Wrath, Scotland. Cape Wrath proves concealment can be as simple as controlling an empty edge of coastline. The training area covers about 23 square miles of Ministry of Defense land at the northwestern tip of mainland Britain. You reach it by passenger ferry, then a single-track road laid in 1828 through bogs, locks, and steep cliffs. Military use is formalized in 1933, and the site expands after the MOD acquires it in 1999. It is described as the only place in the Northern Hemisphere where NATO forces run integrated live training that can involve sea, air, and land in the same space. The emptiness is the feature. Number 4, Harvey Point, North Carolina. Harvey Point is a peninsula wrapped in rules. The U.S. Navy acquires about 1,200 acres here in November 1942 for roughly $41,000, tied to nearby NAS Weeksville, where blimps once patrolled the coast. Today, the facility is classified with fences, cameras, patrols, and strict entry limits. It has been linked to clandestine training and high-impact field work, associated with agencies like the CIA, FBI, and ATF, and with elite units such as DEVGRU. The air above it is part of the lock. Restricted FAA airspace helps keep casual eyes off what happens below. Number 3, INS Varsha, India. INS Varsha is being built for submarines that cannot afford to be seen leaving port. Near Rumbili in Andhra Pradesh, about 43 miles south of Visakhapatnam, India is constructing a high-security base designed for covert nuclear submarine operations. The Bay of Bengal gives fast access to major sea routes, while rugged terrain supports tunnels and chambers that can conceal movement close to shore. Plans describe roughly 7.5 square miles, with capacity often framed as at least 10 nuclear submarines, including Arahant-class boats and future SSBN generations. Some reporting has put the cost in the billions with a mid-2020s delivery window. The point is simple. Departures should be quiet. Number 2. Naval Base Point Loma, San Diego. Point Loma sits inside a famous city, but the base behaves like a vault. Entry runs on clearances, checkpoints, patrols, and constant surveillance, because the commands here support nuclear-powered submarines, whose schedules are sensitive by default. One detail anchors the place in history. In 1958, the pioneering deep-sea vessel Trieste was stationed here, with its successor operating from the base until 1984. Today, the installation includes Submarine Squadron 11 and the support structure that keeps boats ready without turning readiness into spectacle. You can be surrounded by tourists and still vanish, because the boundary is not distance, it is permission. Number 1. Camp Century, Greenland. For the last stop, you go under ice because ice can hide what water cannot. Camp Century was built in 1959 in northwestern Greenland, buried under roughly 100 feet of ice. Publicly, it was Arctic research. Privately, it supported Project Iceworm, a plan to test whether hundreds of nuclear missiles could be deployed beneath the ice sheet. The site lay about 150 miles from Thule Air Base, remote enough to feel invisible, but the ice never stayed still. Tunnels shifted, and structures crept under pressure, and the project was ultimately abandoned. The reactor was removed, but waste and infrastructure were left behind, frozen into a moving glacier. A recent NASA radar survey remapped parts of the buried layout, like a ghost base still trying to stay hidden. When you hear about a naval base, you think of a pier. But the real shelter story is geography plus discipline. Rock tunnels, fjords, inland lakes, and ice that swallows history. Every one of these places exists for one reason: make the next strike miss, and buy crews time to reload, repair, and leave again. Which shelter felt most unreal, and which would you trust in a real fight? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content like this.